What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Striking Gold, your 49ers podcast on the Blue Wire Network. My name's Rob Lowder. That's KP Kyle Posey, NinersNation.com. And we are here covering the 49ers for all you guys on the other side of the speaker. And we had plans. We were going to execute on said plans. And today, the NFL and the NFC West decided to change those plans, which is fine with me because a dark cloud, I guess you could say, a dark cloud moved over Santa Clara today. And that same dark cloud is going to be waiting for the 49ers in Australia, because we were going to talk defensive line today. We were going to talk pass rushers today, but we weren't talking about another team's defensive line or another team's pass rushers, because the Rams did the Rams thing again. As we should just expect by now. Like no trade the Rams make should surprise anybody. But this one's still big enough to where there's no way it wasn't. Myles Garrett, the Myles Garrett. What did he have, KP? 23 sacks last season? 23 of those things, man. Come on. 23 sacks are now headed to the Los Angeles Rams in Myles Garrett. And I feel like you just kind of marinate on that one for a little bit. Like just let it soak in, let the reality hit you a little bit. Now the Rams didn't get him for free. They had to give up their two-time Pro Bowler, defensive rookie of the year, right?
Yeah, man, he was a baller. First rounder, like guy that was projected to go early and kind of fell in their laps.
And Jared Verse is headed back to the Cleveland Browns in exchange for a first rounder this year, a second rounder that next year, and a third rounder the year after that. So first and 27, second and 28, third and 29, and Jared Verse are going to Cleveland in exchange for Myles Garrett, who will be turning 31 this year, but that would not stop me from trading for Myles Garrett in the slightest. He's on, let me see, I think he has 4 more real years left in his deal. And as of now, I don't know how the bonus stuff is going to carry over and what kind of a cap number Myles Garrett's going to have. But last time I checked, when it came to what was listed on the Browns, it was very, very reasonable. So the Rams have made the move of the year, the move of the last 5 years. I'm not sure where this trade ranks in the grand scheme of trades, but it's bigger than trading for Trent Williams. It's bigger than trading for Christian McCaffrey. It is, it's about as big as it gets. So KP, what is on the top of your head? And what did you think when that news rolled through?
The team that was favored to be Super Bowl champs all but cemented themselves to be Super Bowl champs. I feel like those expectations just rose to a different level, and they were already sky high in my mind. And like Jared Verse, phenomenal player, right? Came into a situation where like they needed a pass rusher, and he went above and beyond, I would imagine, what they would expect, what anybody would expect for a first rounder. But you go from Jared Verse to Jared Verse, who essentially was just like a very big pressure, get in your face, but not really a sack finisher guy. And I know a lot of talk around just social media, football, people don't really value sacks for whatever reason as much anymore as they do pressure and pressure rate. But Myles Garrett is the epitome of a finisher, 23 sacks. And I think for him to be able to pull off what he did with the Browns in that, with playing with that offense, going to a Rams team, going to a team that's more than likely going to play with the lead for the majority of the games that they're in, like he's going to have so many opportunities to just put up stupid video game kind of numbers. So I do have some stats. So pressure rate, people brought up the pressure rate. According to Next Gen Stats, Garrett's pressure rate was 16.3%, versus was 13.9%. So a difference. And we're talking about a tier different player. Everybody knows that. But I don't think every pressure is measured the same. So quick pressure is kind of taken into account. Or are you actually getting after the quarterback in a timely manner under 2.5 seconds? Garrett led everybody with 31 quick pressures, and Verse had 19. So I think the real difference is like the athleticism. So Verse is a power rusher, and that's what's wild. We're talking about 31 or 32, however old he is. We're talking about a guy in his 30s, but he still has the literal best get-off time in the NFL. So Jared Verse's get-off time is 0.92 seconds off the line of scrimmage, according to Next Gen Stats. Myles Garrett is 0.7 flat, which, like, for context,
where does that rank in the grand scheme of the NFL?
The number one of number ones, like top.
What's wild about that is look at the guy. Like, he's
right.
Not small. He's not quick. He's not under. I don't mean not quick in that sense. He's not like a guy like a Romello Height, where you're like, this is a smaller, lighter guy. You're getting him for his speed. Myles Garrett looks like he weighs 300 pounds of pure muscle, and he still has the quickest get off in the NFL, which is just doesn't seem naturally possible by the laws of nature. But here he is.
So for context, like Nick Bosa also otherworldly off the line of scrimmage. Like he is top 3. He's 0.74 last year. So the fact that the fact that Garrett is 4/10 faster is just, 400s faster is just insane to me. And it shows, it adds up. So I think the Rams are in as good of hands as you can imagine. Again, they're going to be playing with the lead, and he's going to open up a lot of things for everybody else around him in the same way that Nick Bosa does. So I think some of their other guys like Kobe Turner, some of their other guys like Braden Fisk, like they're going to benefit greatly. And obviously you go from a secondary. So that's another thing that I don't think people talk about. Yeah, Verse had all these pressures and whatnot last year, but teams are still able to throw the ball. Teams are still able to get over on the Rams. Like we watched Seattle, who is not a great offense, move up and down the field in multiple games and multiple big games against the Rams and pretty much score whenever they needed to. Mac McCorkle Jones lit up the Rams. So I think that has to be taken into account. And I think the Rams also understand that as well. Like finishing truly does matter. So being able to go from like a very good player, I don't want to say great, but a very good player, an impact player, to a legitimate game changer, to arguably the best player that we've seen on that side of the ball in this decade, maybe outside of his former Ram, Aaron Donald. It's just Rams, rich get richer. I would have made that trade every day of the week considering what they gave up. Maybe let's talk about that real quick. Do you think the Rams gave up too much? Do you think the deal was spot on? So I guess we can go ahead and talk about the deal.
I don't think the Rams NFL teams operate in like different stratospheres. You know, they all have their own methods of going about winning on the football field. Everybody knows how the Rams have gone about their business over the past 10 years, and maybe even before that. I don't know. When it comes to, F them picks, don't need them. It's a great segue into this tweet right here that Field Yates put together. I love Field Yates, man. He's one of my favorite just NFL personalities out there. He said, Rams first-round picks since 2016. In 2016, they selected Jared Goff, and they eventually traded him in the Matthew Stafford deal. They had no first-rounder in 2017, no first-rounder in 2018, no first-rounder in 2019, 2020, 2021, nope, 2022, nope, 2023, nope. In 2024, they selected Jared Verse, who they just traded for Myles Garrett. In 2025, they had no first-round pick, and in 2026, they picked Ty Simpson, who they hope takes over for Matthew Stafford. And obviously the odds of that are very, very long, but that it is what it is. And so you've got obviously, and I don't even know if there's other teams that operate how the Rams do. The Rams might be the only team in the NFL that operates this way. And for the way that the Rams operate, and I think they know it too. It's almost like not necessarily Myles Garrett, but the entire Rams organization as of right now is tied to Matthew Stafford. Every NFL organization is tied to the starting quarterback. I'm not like muted, am I right? You're making like a funny face. Okay.
No, you're not. My computer's just being computery.
Obviously the Rams' fate is tied to Matthew Stafford. That might be one more, that might be 2 more years. We'll see how that goes. They've kind of made it clear that it's going to be like a year-to-year thing. So for the Rams to already be operating under the lens of a short-term success, I think that trading somebody for like Myles Garrett and trading those draft picks and trading your young, cost-controlled player is a smart move for them. That being said, I don't think it would have been smart for the 49ers to necessarily do the same move in the same way because they're operating in a different plane. Now, that's not necessarily a compliment to the 49ers because this is how the Rams do their business, and the only way that the 49ers can thrive without completely changing their philosophies and trying to become the Rams is hitting on the draft picks that the Rams are voluntarily throwing away. And unfortunately, the 49ers haven't hit on their draft picks in that way, not in a long time. You know, you can look at the last 5 drafts, and there really isn't any players that stand out as like bona fide stars. I think the last player you could even talk about as a star is what, like Talanoa Hufanga? You know, when's the last time they drafted like an all-pro player? I'm going back right here.
Yeah, 21 sounds right, and that was Hufanga, and he was pretty good right away. I know he didn't start because Tart, but once he got on the field that next year, he really took off. So that's close, but they let him walk, and the year after they let him walk, he turns into an all-pro.
Right, and you can't ignore Brock Purdy. That's fine. Obviously, that's the anomaly of all anomalies. But when it comes to every other draft class and consistently finding success and core players, they haven't done it. So you can't close the gap. The only way you can close the gap on a team like the Rams is to use the picks that they're obviously ignoring to get better. Whereas, and the 49ers haven't done that. So the thing this leads me to is there's a lot of talk today about, oh, well, you know, what kind of offer could the 49ers have put together to have matched the Rams? And I don't think the 49ers don't have a Jared Verse on their roster. They don't have a young, cost-controlled player that can match Jared, like, unless you're just talking getting crazy. Even the players like Nick Bosa can't. I don't think they'd necessarily play with that because Nick Bosa's on the older side of a total career. He's coming off his 3rd ACL tear, and he's got a big contract. So there'd be no point in changing Nick Bosa for Myles Garrett unless you're adding a ton of draft picks. And that's the only thing the 49ers could have done. Like, you want to send Fred Warner in exchange for Myles Garrett? You know, like maybe they'd have that conversation. But then it's like you're exchanging one great, you're almost like solving and creating problems at the same time. So I'm saying a lot of words to say I don't think there was a way the 49ers could have matched what the Rams put together because the 49ers didn't have a player like Jared Verse on the roster unless you're just throwing a ton of draft picks, like an otherworldly amount of draft picks at the Browns. And maybe they didn't. Maybe that wasn't what they wanted. You know, maybe the Jared Verse might have been like the cornerstone of this trade for the Browns, and the fact that getting back a young, promising, cheap player rather than just the draft pick, somebody that's already a proven commodity. So part of the appeal was also that Verse was on a rookie deal too. Right. So if we're operating in those terms, right, in that sense, the 49ers would have to offer somebody that's on their rookie contract and not like the 2023 class in the final year of their deal, 2024 class, they have multiple years on their contract. So it would be very difficult to come up with one of those players. Like you would have to sell them on Ricky Pearsall. You'd have to sell them on like a Michael Williams. So just the value, obviously, I would imagine most teams would agree, just does not add up. And Kyle Pinto said here, the Rams are blowing it up in a year when Stafford retires and whatever that, and that's what I started with. And I kind of buried the lead there is I think the Rams know that things are probably over in a year or two. You know, when Stafford leaves, they're probably going to go into a type of like, you know, a pseudo rebuild mode. So why not just, you know, take the ultimate swing? The Rams are kind of like this like dying star right now. It's beautiful. It's about to implode, but it looks great right now, and they can 100% win a ring or two in the meantime. And in fact, like you said, man, they are now expected to win the Super Bowl. If they do not win the Super Bowl, then it is a letdown. And that's a great place to be. You've obviously got a roster.
Right.
We considered the Rams the best team in the NFL before they added Myles Garrett.
Yes.
And that takes you up a significant amount. So what did you mean? You said you would do that deal 10 times out of 10. What do you think about what the Rams gave up and where they are in the way they go about their business?
Yeah, I mean, if we liken it to what the 49ers did with Trent Williams or with Christian McCaffrey, they got a bundle of day 2 picks, right? So, in my mind, the opportunities that he will create for you, for everybody else over the next 3 seasons, as well as make life so much easier on your secondary, who you already just invested in, knowing that, hey, your offense is already scoring 30 points a game is what it felt like anyway. So it just makes so much sense if you're thinking in terms of, well, they're going to have to blow it up 2 years from now, 3 years from now. And like the point is to win a Super Bowl. So if you win it all, I wouldn't mind that at all. Like, who cares, right? I like the way, like, I guess this is the one area where I agree with Kyle Shanahan's mindset, almost in the sense that he is so narrowly focused on what's in front of him that he's not thinking 2-3 years down the line. And in my mind, that is how you win. Of course, a pick like Ty Simpson, like you are thinking long-term in sense of, hey, maybe Matt Stafford walks away. But I think when you think of in terms of 2026 and probably 2027, you are giving yourself such a good opportunity to go out and compete at the highest level, not just compete at the highest level, but be better than the teams around you who are also very good. So I think in all facets, it makes the Rams much better than everybody else, which is going to be tough to deal with. And I know it's probably tough to stomach, but if we're going based off of the assumption that the Rams offense is going to be just nearly as good, right? If they plateau, they're going to be an elite offense, but now the defense is going to take such a big step forward where I think we're going to really notice it.
Jay Dogue on Twitter actually replied to our going live tweet, said, if Garrett is a 10 out of 10 defensive end, then Verse is probably an 8 or a 9 out of 10. And this is ultimately a high cost incremental upgrade for the Rams. And it's not that I agree that Verse is an 8 or a 9 out of 10 at a defensive end. It's that Aaron Donald or Myles Garrett is not a 10 out of 10 defensive end. Like, I understand that's where I do think that's the right place for Jared Verse, but Myles Garrett doesn't belong on that scale. Like, he's like, take him off that scale and place him over here. He's like the action figure that gets his own spot. Like, you've got all your action figures on the wall. Well, Myles Garrett goes on your nightstand next to you. Like, he's
the great analogy. Yes.
he
is the scale.
Right. He is. Yeah. He's by which everyone else is judged. He's like the mold. Like, he's the mold, and they broke it. I'm not sure. Maybe another Myles Garrett will come around eventually. But Strawberry Reacts had a great point here that I've got on the notes that I was about to say, because we're talking about the Rams and their shelf life. This was kind of glossed over, by the way. Strawberry Reacts said, wasn't it reported that they aren't going to sign guys like Puka, Young, etc.? Yeah, Jeremy Fowler put out a tweet right in the middle of the Rams trading for Myles Garrett. And Jeremy Fowler consistently has good information too.
He says, very reputable source.
Right. He said sources say that Los Angeles is giving early impressions. It won't extend 2027 free agents Puka Nacua, Byron Young, Kobe Turner, and Steve Avila this summer. Perhaps that changes, but deals are not on the radar now. So the Rams know that. One, there's another thing too, is I think it might be next year. I don't know how Myles Garrett's deal is going to come to fruition from the Rams, but I think starting next year, things are going to get real tight for the Rams. And it's not, trading for the best defensive end that's also the highest paid defensive end is not without consequences. The rest of the roster is going to suffer, and you're going to hope that having those two players just keeps everybody else afloat. So yeah, the second and third order effects are the fact that stars like Puka Nacua, who, if we're being honest, based on a lot of the things that have been going on with Puka Nacua lately, and his struggles off the field,
might be time.
it seemed like there was a chance they were just going to let that one go anyways. They probably see him as money better spent for another team. And, again, I'm not sitting in judgment of anybody. That's just what I would assume the Rams would do. But but that is undoubtedly a star player for them. Byron Young, Kobe Turner, Steve Avila, all good players. So, yeah, that kind of lends to further gravity that the Rams they are all in right now. And why not?
You can stomach losing a player like I would say a player like Byron Young, who's also, so both of those guys, their contracts are up after this season, Byron Young and Puka Nacua. You can stomach losing in Byron Young because you have Myles Garrett. You can stomach losing Puka Nacua, who is objectively one of the best receivers in the NFL. But I also think it's not a stretch to say he probably won't be as productive in a different scheme, because a lot of the things that they do is so timing based, where Stafford throws it at his face mask before he's out of his break, or he's in a contested situation that it takes a perfect pass for the pass to be completed to begin with. So like, who's to say Puka would be as good with whoever is going to give him the bank next year, one of these non-playoff teams, but who knows who makes a run at him. But I would imagine we have a much different opinion, as we will in my mind, of Jared Verse when he plays for Cleveland, when we see Puka go somewhere else. So it sounds bad now. It's funny that this still was kind of lost in the shuffle. Oh, by the way, they're not going to play their other good players, but it's Myles Garrett. So the 3-year sacrifice they're making, even if it ends up with the Rams, making sacrifices, they made the sacrifice by acquiring Myles Garrett, and they're going to let their other stars walk away. They're good players. But you still have Myles Garrett. Like, that's what all this hinges on, is him playing like the Hall of Fame player that he has been. Like, there's no real evidence that that's going to change.
The big difference between Myles Garrett with the Rams and Myles Garrett with the Browns is you have to assume that for the majority of Myles Garrett's snaps, Myles Garrett is going to be playing on a Rams defense that is playing with a lead.
Yeah.
For the most part. Not to mention a Rams defense that also added, and you mentioned it, Trek McDuffie and Jalen Watson, two great corners coming from the same team that are familiar with playing with each other. And now you've got a Myles Garrett that isn't defending the run. He's not reading and reacting. He's playing on a defense that might be winning by 14 points, and now just gets to go wild, and right. Lowbridge said here earlier, he said he's an amazing talent and a generational defensive end, because Lowbridge, I believe, is from Cleveland. He's a 49ers fan, but he's also a Browns fan, and has watched all of their Browns games. And he said he does freelance a ton. He's not sure that will fly with the Rams. It's a sad day for us in Cleveland, and it pisses me off he went to the Rams. It's like when the Browns cut Odell Beckham Jr., and he signed with the Rams to beat the Niners in the playoffs. And that's the only thing I would say is, do you necessarily blame Myles Garrett for freelancing a bit on a Browns defense that's terrible? It's not necessarily how you want to go about it, but he is Myles Garrett, so you get him a little leeway to do the thing. It's like I can't remember what the coach said in The Last Dance, where he was talking about somebody coaching Dennis Rodman. He's like, hey, you don't put a saddle on a stallion, man. Just let him do his thing. And it's kind of like the same thing with Myles Garrett. Like, you're just going to let him do what he does. But again, it's his entire approach to the game is going to be different now that he's on a Rams team with an elite offense and an elite quarterback that's probably going to be winning. And now they've also added great secondary players to help complement what Myles Garrett wants to do on the defensive front. So, no, that Strawberry Rack said the Browns defense was not terrible. No, but the point is the Browns offense was terrible, and they were consistently playing against teams that were probably trying to protect their lead versus the Browns trying to defend theirs. So that's what I mean by that. So, yeah, it's interesting, man. It's interesting. And the thing when it comes back to the 49ers is it's like a two-sided, it's like a sword. Obviously, swords have two edges, and that's kind of what the problem is for the 49ers is the 49ers haven't drafted well enough to put together a Rams package that would equal what they gave up to get Myles Garrett. And what's funny about that is that also means that they aren't necessarily justified in not putting together crazy deals. Like, if you're not putting together a great list of first-round draft picks, and we went over every one of them, their first round is inarguably their worst round. And so
familiar?
what's keeping you from throwing a bunch of first round picks and maybe they did, maybe they didn't, maybe this whole thing was out of nowhere. It sounds like the reason the Rams got Myles Garrett is they just would not stop calling the Browns. That's at least what's being reported right now. Do you think the 49ers should have been that stingy about Myles Garrett and just not put down the phone and try to put themselves in a position? It seems a little ticky-tack to like say the 49ers did something wrong because the Rams made the trade, but
right.
What do you think about, should the 49ers have been in on it if they weren't?
I don't think that I don't think they had the pieces to make that deal happen. It sounds good when you're talking about it after the fact.
Right.
But if I'm Cleveland and I'm assessing the 49ers roster, the only player that I'm willing to take back in a trade if I'm giving up Myles Garrett would be Brock Purdy. And I'm 95% serious when I say that. Like who else would be willing to move the needle enough for me to part ways with a player who just had 23 sacks? And again, I read off his get off time. Like that is not normal. So understanding that, it would be tough for me to part ways with him for like a package similar to a young defensive lineman, whether that's Michael Williams or anybody else you can name, or any of the other pieces that you could possibly come up with, one of the wide receiver, anybody else. Like I just have a hard time thinking the 49ers, barring one of those SGA, the Thunder trades where you're parting ways with so many future first round picks that the Browns have to say yes, just don't know where they would be able to swing that.
Yeah, Cal Pinto said they did give up a bunch of first-round picks for Trey Lance. And that kind of lends to the point. Like, you traded a bunch of first-round picks, but then couldn't draft the player.
Yeah.
You couldn't execute. And that's Trey Lance is a podcast in and of himself, and the fact that this weird, crazy, perfect storm had to happen for Trey Lance to be cast aside like he was. Like, what are you going to do? Like, never mind. That's a different podcast. But Brock Purdy shows up. What do you do, man? What do you do about that? Do you just tell him to get lost? But the Rams are now fully. They're all the way in, and they're fully depending on Matthew Stafford and his little Airstream trailer cloning device that he that he keeps on the that they keep at the place. So let's turn it to the NFC, man. Like. NFC, let's turn into the NFC West. Let's go NFC West first. The 49ers might be the third best team in the NFC, and they might be the third best team in the NFC West, which is a really, really crappy spot to be in. But we saw it this season. You can still make the show being the third best team in the NFC West. You've just got to do your thing against every other opponent. So how do you feel like the 49ers reside in the NFC West now that the Rams, who we consider the best team, now add Garrett?
Yeah, you got to give yourself a chance, right? By when you say get in the dance, like all that matters is making the playoffs. I was talking about it earlier today on Twitter. Like one of the 49ers in 2021 beat a Packers team that was undefeated at Lambeau. That was one of the top 3 offenses in the NFL. And without basically doing anything on offense, they were able to upset the Packers at home. So anything can happen once you get into the dance. I think the 49ers are going to end up being better than the Seahawks, of course. Like, yes, I do. Yes, I do.
KP's reacting to Strawberry React saying, remember last year when the Packers traded for Parsons and were going to win the Super Bowl? Now, in their defense, he got hurt, but that is one way that things dramatically change quickly in the NFL. But continue, KP.
Yeah, no, injuries are a huge part of the NFL. And I'm saying the 49ers are going to be better than the Seahawks under the impression that they're going to stay healthy. Is that a big if? Of course, because it's such a top-heavy roster and their foundation is built on essentially all the All-Pros and Hall of Famers on the roster, and that's what the success is contingent on. Still, I think they're going to be better than Seattle just from top to bottom. So I would put them number 2 in the NFC West, but I still think one of these other teams outside of the division is going to make a run, whether that's from benefiting from an easy schedule, lackluster division, you name it. So still won't be surprised, though. I still think Seattle's going to take a step back, but I think the Rams are a clear number 1. Whether number 2 is the 49ers, whether number 2 ends up being a surprise team like the Packers, where Parsons stays healthy, they go out and trade for Josh Sweat from the Cardinals because Josh Sweat wants out, and Jonathan Gannon is now with Green Bay, so that's an easy easy way to tie, easy marriage there. So I could see other teams taking a step forward. Another deal that happened today that was being talked about for years, it felt like. A.J. Brown went to the New England Patriots, and that means the 49ers will not have to face A.J. Brown. And that means so here's a good question. Get hypothetical. When the 49ers face Philly in December, Philly comes to Santa Clara, will Philly be out of the playoff race? My hot take would be yes, they would be closer to below 500. I think that's going to really change the hierarchy. We talked about it a little bit where big-time wide receiver, veteran wide receiver, big body wide receiver, isolation wide receiver. And now they're going from that to a rookie in Mekhi Lemon who's undersized and just the complete opposite mold of an A.J. Brown type. So there's going to take a lot of changes for the Eagles. So we're talking the hierarchy of the NFC and all the differences that happened this offseason. I feel like losing A.J. Brown for the Eagles is huge. And I know they got Jonathan Greenard. I know they drafted a tight end still. You don't replace A.J. Brown, not the same like replacing Myles Garrett, but it's going to be a big loss for Philly. So I would say Philly's going to step out of these other contenders that we're talking about. What do you think? Do you think there's any other changes near the top of the NFC as far as the difference or the trades that we're talking about, whether it's A.J. Brown, Myles Garrett, or anything else?
I mean, I still think if we're just talking about NFC as a whole, I mean, we've kind of hit on it when we talked about the schedule. I think the Cowboys are going to be better. I think the Bears are going to be significantly better. I think they're going to be pretty good. I think it wouldn't surprise me if the Bears are like a team to beat type of thing. I expect Caleb Williams just kind of keep getting better. You know, the Packers might take a little bit of a step forward just because they get back Micah Parsons, you know, and he hopefully help. I mean, I'm assuming they're going to get him back by the start of the season. You just never know with those injuries. But when it comes to trades, you know, it's weird. Obviously, A.J. Brown had a huge piece in the success for the Eagles, but he was arguably one of the reasons they lost against the 49ers. Like that guy had, I want to say it was 2 big-time drops that were
brutal drops.
Yeah, one of them I think he had kind of room to move in front of him. I can't remember the other one, but he had
Lenore on a slant that he could have housed.
That might have been it. It was over the middle.
Sure.
Yeah, and so it's weird. I do think that overall A.J. Brown's leaving the Eagles is definitely going to hurt them. But it's just in a weird way and how tumultuous that relationship was, and obviously things came to a head in the playoffs when he didn't make plays when he needed to, and you know, so it definitely affects things for the Eagles. I don't know what to, you know, like you said, I don't know how to process Mekhi Lemon yet. He was we didn't know even very much about him going into the draft. You know, yeah, he had a very very good season, but he was a relatively inexperienced player. So going back to the NFC West, man, it's. I think one thing I do want to make sure I say. Well, one thing that we haven't said yet that I've got on here. Going back to the Rams is what if they convinced Aaron Donald to retire, unretire, and they're like, hey man, we have Myles Garrett here. Would you like to just come play with him? And he's spent a couple years without football. I think he just posted a picture recently. He's still completely jacked. There was no way that
probably in pretty good shape.
And he hasn't had football bearing down on him for the past couple of years, and he's not old enough for him to be like, you know, making noise when he bends down and stuff like that. So it's like, man, that would be terrifying, and it wouldn't surprise me at all at this point. They would just ask him like, "Hey, man, you want to come play next to Myles Garrett and see how defenses handle you?" And he's like, "Hey, why not? As long as I can miss training camp, can we do it after training camp?" And they'd be like, "Yeah, don't care. Come on. I mean, you know what to do." So it's crazy, but I think to again bring it back to the 49ers, as crazy as it is to say, like, I still think the 49ers can beat the Rams. Like, I still think that the 49ers have a good shot at beating the Rams. I still think the 49ers can beat the Seahawks. I know the title of this stream is, you know, have they fallen out of reach in the NFC West? And I don't think so yet. But to me, in a grander scheme of things, it's a good thing that the Rams are as aggressive as they are. It's a good thing that the Seahawks just won the Super Bowl because it just turns up the heat in the entire division. It raises the bar. It increases the standards. Nobody's allowed to get complacent. It's just an arms race, man. It's the Cold War amongst the NFC West. You just keep making weapons and you keep building bombs. And it just turns up the heat for John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, which I am perfectly fine with. And yeah, maybe that means the Rams are better than the 49ers this year, or they're better than the 49ers for the next couple of years. But overall, in the grand scheme of things, wouldn't you want to maintain a standing in the NFL that just forces you to be at your best, be at your sharpest at all times? I just, I'm not trying to create a glass half full approach for anybody, or blow sunshine up anybody's wahoo. That's just the way it is, man. The 49ers are in the best division in football now, and I still think they've got a chance. The Rams. Now, here's an interesting question for you, and I'm not looking for a specific answer, but I feel like in a weird way, there's a chance that the Osa Odigizua trade for the 49ers has maybe nearly as big of an impact for the 49ers as Myles Garrett has for the Rams. And it's just the way he slots into things. You need players. You're hoping everybody's healthy for the 49ers, but trying to bring it back to them, it's like that's a huge trade that I still think we haven't. And you're starting to see OTA news come out, and you're starting to see people talk about, now there's no contact or anything like that, but they're talking about just how different Osa Odigizua looks compared to anything they've had on that team in the past. So the 49ers bringing a legit interior pass rusher into the fold may pay bigger dividends than we even think. Now, again, he's not Myles Garrett or anything remotely in that conversation. Nobody is, but I still think we might be underselling that trade in the fact that the 49ers might have their own very, very, very good defensive front to contend with. That might be significantly better than it was last year, which isn't a low bar. So where do you think the 49ers sit in this whole mess of the NFC West? I mean, you kind of already mentioned it. But
yeah, no, I think it is important to harp on Osa being their version of like the big offseason game changer. I know they signed Mike Evans, and that was really to counter the issues that they had in the passing game last season. But as far as Osa goes, I really don't think a lot of time has been spent on the quality of player he is and how he impacts the passer in a lot of the same ways that Jared Verse did, just from a pressure standpoint, from a quick pressure standpoint. And I think his length is really going to be a factor for the 49ers. So they've tried to go this interior pass rush route with guys like Javon Hargrave, but like he just doesn't have the kind of wingspan, the kind of NFL body that it takes to really truly impact a game, to like flip a game upside on its head in a way like Eric Armstead does with his length, who we saw he did in the Packers game that I referenced earlier in the playoffs. So I think Osa can be that kind of guy for the 49ers, and it's going to help him a ton having Bosa on the field as well. So it's going to go a long way to have Osa on the field. He's going to be a very good player. I don't think it's going to really hit 49ers fans until they see him make a play like, oh, like this is what everybody was talking about.
Do you think that the Rams trading for Myles Garrett puts more pressure on the 49ers to add somebody like a Joey Bosa to like, does it change their outlook on things, or do you think they still feel like they're already on track for a great offseason and they've already added the majority of what they need? Or do you still feel like they need, I mean, obviously that opens up a whole new book of trades that could still happen, but do you feel like this changes their outlook on things? Or do you think they feel like they're all full speed ahead?
I mean, according to his little brother, the big brother is thinking about golf right now. So not too.
Did you take that as retirement or just in no rush to sign with anybody?
I thought that he's good on training camp is how I read that. So not really worried about football in June, July, and probably even August. And he'll hit up the NFL when it's time to play, probably even close to October and November. But I don't think so, right? I still think it's a season where the 49ers are really going to need a guy like Romello Height and develop a guy like Romello Height, develop a guy like Michael Williams, as opposed to, patching a hole with a Band-Aid when that's not really – that's been an issue for them. They've tried the veteran route, and they've only had one-year wonders. Some guys have really worked out, like a Charles Omenihu. Other guys – not so much, like a Leonard Floyd. So I think you want to stay away from the coin flips and trust your investments. Give your young guys a chance to prove that you are right. And they're walking into such a good foundation with Bosa, with Osa, and then of course Michael being the guy that you can move inside. So again, I just think signing a guy like Joey like even if he is good, like there's no guarantee that he's going to stay healthy. So the idea that you're taking reps away from your third rounder who you invested relatively early in is just like a losing proposition. I wouldn't go that route.
All right. Trying to think if there's anything else we need to. If anybody has anything they want to chip in the chat, now's the good time. Filthy Casual 49ers fans. I think this was when I was talking about, the overall, the fact that the Rams and Seahawks had done nothing but turn up the heat in the division. He said, no, want the Niners to win a Super Bowl. Of course. I think, we all would like to see that. It would make for just some amazing coverage. But at the same time, I just think there's a lot of value in the fact that the 49ers have, without winning the damn thing, and I know that means a lot, have found a way to stay consistently competitive. And there's a value in that. And again, there's this conversation, Kyle Shanahan and John List were asked this on, I think it was what's his name? Tom Tolbert show that recently.
Tom Tolbert,
is that his?
Yeah.
And maybe we'll end on this. He was at, like, would you rather win the Super Bowl and essentially be irrelevant for like a long period of time, or consistently stay competitive and not have a guaranteed Super Bowl? Do you have which one would you choose? Win the Super? I think he used some time span, like 8 years or something, where it was like 8 years
Like
and
a
essentially
perennial playoff team.
Yeah, but not have a guaranteed Super Bowl, or have a guaranteed Super Bowl and then fall into irrelevance for the rest of the time.
Yeah, like if you're thinking like year to year and you always want to be in a position to make the playoffs, you're going to take the option where you're always going to be good, as opposed to you spike for 1 year. I think that's what fans want. You want to spike for that 1 year, and then you don't care what happens after that. Like, that's not how you think about it. Like, you're running a business. That's not how you'd run a business, where you push all your assets and just chop up all your sheets, whatever it may be, so you can go in on 1 year and look good for 2026, but then in 2027, 2028, 2029, you're going to be paying out what because of the move you made in 2026. Like, that's not how you run a good business. So if you're thinking on a year-to-year business, I think that's pretty easy, where, hey man, I want to be good a lot, and that's not going to be an option if you're only thinking in terms of 2026. So pretty easy answer for me.
Filthy Casual 49ers fan said, I heard Josh Sweat wants to get out of Arizona. Would he be worth a trade? I mean, he would be for sure. I just don't think they would trade him to the 49ers,
Right. Very wishful thinking.
Yeah, he's got a $16 million cap number this season, 23 in 27, 23 and 28, and then 29 is a void year. So he's got a manageable cap number from here on out, and he would have to be productive, but I just don't think they would ever entertain a trade to the 49ers, basically, ever. So, Low Bridge, appreciate you. Yeah, I mean, I think that's enough. I think we got it. I think we did the thing. And again, my point is, this really, it changes the dynamic, but it doesn't. The Rams are now even harder to beat. We know that, but I already considered the Rams the best team in the NFL. And what this really does is makes it to where if the 49ers want to pencil in 2 losses to the Rams, then so be it. Win your other games.
Right.
Like, when
if only there was a way.
Close the distance. Now, it's tough, dude, because you almost expect the 49ers to kind of be able to close the distance to the Seahawks or the Rams. And in my opinion, just based on what we saw last season, it seemed like more likely they'd close the distance to the Rams. But now even that's been pushed out a little bit. So what this really does is makes it to where, look, you've got to repeat what you did last year. You've got to both the Rams and the Seahawks are likely to finish ahead of you in the standings. You got to win your other games and find a way to get into the playoff anyways, and then beat one of those teams when you get there, or both of them. So it's crazy, man. It's crazy. It's such a huge move, and what's wildest about it is it just didn't surprise me at all. Like, that's what the Rams do. That's what the Rams do. And now Australia just looks even crazier. Again, I still think the 49ers can beat the Rams. They're just going to have to be good. I mean, that's a dramatic oversimplification, but they're just going to have to be good. Kawachipto said Seahawks will regress, but the Rams look scary on paper, but they are paper thin. I mean, they are, but and you can say, oh, well, they're relying on Matthew Stafford until we're blue in the face, but every team is relying on their starting quarterback. The only difference is Matthew Stafford is old and hurt and only takes one. So, and that would be the end of that. That would be the end of that. So, KP, anything you want to finish with?
No, man. I mean, it's a move that just changes everything in the NFC, and maybe not changes everything, but like the ball is in the Rams' court.
Yeah, that's and that's a great pressure to have, but it is pressure, and now they've got to go do the damn thing because that is the only acceptable solution for them at this point is a Super Bowl win. All right. Appreciate everybody hanging out, man. I appreciate everybody hanging out in the YouTube channel. If you're here right now, make sure you like and make sure you subscribe. You guys have already been in the comments. Can't ask anything more from you from there, but the liking and the subscribing is what helps us grow the channel, so I'd appreciate it. If you're listening on the podcast, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, you're listening on Spotify, my wife, Katie, told me, she's like, you keep saying iTunes. Do you realize nobody's used iTunes in like a really long time? I was like, you're right. But like,
suppose that makes sense.
Right. But it's like when you, no, you know what? I don't even think it's there anymore. Because when you look at your podcast numbers on like the hosting platform, I don't think it says iTunes anymore. I think it says Apple Podcasts. So I was just way behind, but whatever. I apologize if anybody was being offended by my use of the word iTunes. I apologize. But if you're on the pod listening, one, make sure you leave us a 5-star review. We would appreciate that. And two, come on over to the YouTube channel and hang out there too. We would appreciate it. But things are going great, man. Channel's steadily growing, and we're having a hell of a time. KP, are you going to OTAs?
Yeah, I am. I'll be there on Wednesday.
Okay, and you're flying back the same day, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we haven't even talked about this yet. We're not going to talk about it now, but there's a chance that maybe if I can get KP on here on Thursday, we might move it and we could break down what KP saw at OTAs. Because like I said, man, we're occasionally credentialed media. Every now and then we show up with a press credential and remind everybody that we're still out here. So,
oh yeah, we gotta watch football.
Right. All right, everybody. I appreciate you very, very, very much. Thank you for hanging out with us. You already know what it is, man. For another episode, I'm Rob. That's KP, and we are signing out.